Welcome to the surprise bonus episode. I'm your host, Kira Astor, and joining me today, as always, is my co-host. It's Raven Ebert. Are we excited?
Yes, I love numbered lists, and you're about to hit me with a real juicy, meaty list sandwich here. Let's go.
Yes. So last time, in our last episode, we just talked about what are our top 16 rankings of the MCU Phase 4. This is where we'll go into more details around why I placed certain things at 12 and not 9, why something is number 2 and not, number 1. So we'll go into details here, and obviously these are our own thoughts and contain spoilers. So, spoiler warning, be warned. These contain a lot of plot details, a lot of background, a lot of our speculations, and all that jazz. So, let's go.
And a lot of our personal subjective feelings. So, don't take it personal, guys. This is our opinion. Let's get into it, Kira.
Phase 4 rankings. Are you ready? So these are totally our opinions based on 2 years of homework that we didn't know we were doing. Based on vibes and feels and honestly our own thoughts. So make of that what you will. And I do want to say that we have not watched so there's 18 stories. We have not watched the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special or I Am Groot, so those are not in this list. We are just rating from 16.
Flog yourself. Shame on you. You call yourself a Marvel fan, bro?
There's only so much time.
I know. There's only so much time in our life for Marvel.
Losers. All right.
Spoiler alert.
Let's go. Let's start. We're going to go from 16 to number 1. At number 16, we have the Falcon and Winter Soldier. So, creator Malcolm Spellman, who's also making the movie Captain America New World Order, he tried. He tried here. In general, I think it just did not work for me. I loved getting the history of Captain America in Isaiah Bradley, what it means to be a Black superhero in America, a Black Avenger in general. Seeing Anthony Mackie become Captain America, seeing that origin story, seeing, Sebastian Stan as White Wolf / Winter Soldier interact with Anthony Mackie's The Falcon / Captain America is always wonderful. Their chemistry is just wonderful. We had Daniel Bruhl back as Zemo doing the beautiful dance that lasted like 10 seconds but became a social media sensation.
Oh, yeah. It's just him dancing, not in character. I bet that's just how Germans dance at a rave.
There were some highlights, right? But I honestly could not stand everything else. The story, the pacing, the choppy scenes, the contrived dialogue, the plot of the Flag Smashers, the random scenes with the Power Broker, which we have Emily Van Camp back as Sharon Carter, the introduction of U.S. Agent and played by Wyatt Russell, just random introduction of Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, played by JLD, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Welcome to the MCU. It was just
get your paycheck, Elaine. Get that paycheck, Selena Meyer.
Yeah, so that I'm placing at number 16. Let's move on to number 15. Eternals. So, helmed by Oscar-winning director of Nomadland, Chloe Zhao, even her Even her magic touch could not save this travesty
No,
of a
as soon as she
story.
said that her favorite superhero movie was Man of Steel by Zack Snyder, I laughed and laughed, and I said, "This is gonna be a total shit show. It is going to be a clusterfuck of slow motion and I guess like heavy pondering thoughts, or what we should assume are heavy pondering thoughts, is exactly what I thought it would be when she said that,
It's
oh boy, I love Superman. And they're like Superman references in the movie too, which I was like, way to go. DC has never even acknowledged the fact that you guys exist. They've never once mentioned it. But Marvel properties actively referencing Superman is just like giving the game away. That's what you're trying to be. You don't have the cultural cachet. You just have money at the box office because you're churning out content. But
yeah.
I was embarrassed for them.
It's the movie had beautiful visuals, right? Because they actually stepped outside and actually
Oh
shot
my
real
God.
sunsets and the real
Yeah.
ocean. And that is what Chloe Zhao does excel at. Just beautiful vistas, beautiful, gorgeous shots. And we had our greatest actors, right? Some of our greatest actors, Salma Hayek, Angelina Jolie, Brian Tyree Henry, just doing the most, and it still did not work. And the ensemble piece and the chemistry, I think the chemistry test just really failed somewhere, because Gemma Chan and Richard Madden were just like supposed to be in a romantic relationship, and it just did not work. And then we had Kumail Nanjiani, who got real swole for this, just looking real good. And then just tapping out right before the final battle. Like, no, I don't think I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah. I really thought he was getting swole for a reason, but he literally dipped as soon as the action was about to start. He's like, bye guys,
He
for
got swole
South
for the
Asian
Bollywood dances.
representation, which were terrible. The choreography sucked. Like, Kumail, get DNA tested. I don't think you have like Pakistani DNA. Like, you were terrible at that dance. Like, good God.
Boom!
And even the costuming for that, I was like, which hack made this? And I was like, yeah, there's
Pretty
no one
bad.
from South Asia involved in those costuming. So yeah. Sprite's chemistry was terrible. She was like petulant without seeming like an actual
The
adult.
ensemble
Like,
just did not work. Yeah. It was
didn't.
too crowded, too overdone, honestly a bit laughable at points. And the story beats and character development just awful. And I feel very bad for Chloe Zhao that she was given
Yeah.
this
No, but I mean, she had a hand in the casting, so it's not like, she was just given this and said make it work. But
no,
even
I actually
Barry
how much
Keoghan was
power.
wasted. Barry Keoghan was wasted. Brian Tyree Henry was wasted. Angelina Jolie did nothing. She looked gorgeous, and that was it. So
Yeah, I know. Doesn't she like pass out at times? But I have to go back to Chloe Zhao. We know that Marvel just does not give their creatives and directors and like these people who helm these stories enough power behind the scenes, and they are hamstrung by the studios. So it's rough. And 47% on Rotten Tomatoes, as we mentioned, and that is quite shocking. At number 14, we have Thor: Love and Thunder. Taika Waititi back for the third installation of Thor. Is it the fourth? The fourth. I believe it's the fourth. Yes. And for the sake of time, we have covered this before in our Summer Blockbusters episode. We did a deep dive into Thor: Love and Thunder, and you can find more details there. But TLDR, it felt very phoned in. I mean, Taika's been on one, just falling in love and all, but this just, no. So we'll move on to number 13. So this is where we have Black Widow. So directed by Kate Shortland. And honestly, nothing memorable about this one, except for, the entry of Florence Pugh as the new Black Widow. Honestly, a gross mistreatment of one of the original Avengers, in Natasha Romanoff, played by Scarlett Johansson, who finally got her own solo movie after she had died in
That's
phase
what it
3.
takes.
Just no. And story did not work. There was a villain in Taskmaster who was just honestly shockingly bad and incredibly dumb. It was
Yeah.
the boring.
But I
It was
mean,
just a boring story.
that's like the heavy in the movie. The real villain is, I think it's Harvey Weinstein. I think it's supposed to be Harvey Weinstein because that's the vibe I got. And the whole idea about encountering feminine pain and being treated as disposable and control, it's like, yes, we need a movie about that. And I think Kate Shortland would be a good director given her filmography in dealing specifically with like that feminine perspective and feeling that sense of loss and control and having to survive. But by Disney, by Marvel, no. I don't think it works. Like I think that their ideas came up and it was constantly shot down, and as soon as he said like my pheromones can't make you attack me, I was like, I'm checking out. This is dumb.
It was.
This isn't trying to say anything serious about like, you know, sex trafficking or protecting little girls everywhere in the world and making sure that they're feeling valued. I was like, oh, this is some bullshit. Also love that a Russian family gets together and they just sit around and talk like this instead of just speaking in Russian. Like, come
criminal
on.
underutilization of David Harbour and Rachel Weisz. Just, I'm
Yeah.
like, you get these amazing actors in there, let them cook, but no. It just, yeah. And then, you know, this also came out at a time where we were all starting to hear of the tension between Scarlett Johansson and Marvel. So the whole thing was surrounded by just icky. The whole thing felt icky, and Black Widow deserved a lot more than this. All right, so we'll move on to number 12. So this is where we have Shang-Chi. So directed by Destin Cretton, and in general, a very enjoyable movie, at least the first half. Simu Liu looking real fit, having a great time with Michelle Yeoh, with Tony Leung, who's just looking great. With his sleeves rolled up, just the whole thing is working. The second half of the story is just where the things start to collapse. The battle sequence where Aquafina's Katie is just an expert archer now did not make sense. And I had a hard time really reconciling in general what the movie was trying to be. Is it a street level action martial arts dedicated movie? Is
You
it
know
a
what it
this
looked like?
large
It looked like a better version, a slightly better version of Avatar The Last Airbender. Like the movie M. Night Shyamalan wanted to make but couldn't because he's just horrible with dialogue. So when all of the dragons and like the fantastical creatures and everybody in their little color coded uniforms came out, I was like, I am really getting like Earth Kingdom fighting against Fire Nation vibes here. This is
Yeah, it's
weird.
so funny that you speak of that, but because I got so many vibes in a good way from the Avatar universe, Last Airbender universe, especially the dance in the beginning. It was very Zuko Aang dragon dance like sequence. It was so
Right.
beautiful and so
Yeah.
fantastical and mythical and gorgeous, and that's what I struggled with. What was the movie trying to be? Because we go in between that to CGI dragon fights and the martial arts type
I think that's all fine, but like the one thing that Avatar has that this didn't is that we gave a shit about Aang and we gave a shit about Zuko. We really cared about the trajectory that those two characters had been through, and I was thinking about what Shang-Chi actually experienced, and it was just he didn't want to, and now he does, and that's it. There's like no other conflicts where he's
You
trying to run
seem to
away
be
from.
talking about something called character development.
Yeah,
What's that?
it's something that, you know, Asian Americans deserve to have when they're being portrayed on screen. Sorry if I'm coming off as biased, but like, again, the best parts were the parts that were set in San Francisco because it's perfect.
All right. At number 11, we have Hawkeye. So directed by Rhys Thomas, and honestly a really fun Christmas watch last year. It came out in December or November, around the holiday time. I loved getting more in depth with one of my least favorite original Avengers, Hawkeye. I just
No one's favorite. No one's favorite is more accurate.
never cared about how Jeremy Renner portrayed him, what his story was, just absolutely did not care. But this makes you care because it goes into his guilt with losing his true love and best friend, Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson, in Infinity War, and just in general dealing with PTSD as well, which seems to be a theme throughout this phase. We see the grief in WandaVision. We see a lot of PTSD come up for Loki. We see a lot of PTSD for Winter Soldier. So that seems to be a theme as well, dealing with the fallout from the Infinity Saga. And in general, loved the chemistry between Haley Steinfeld and Jeremy Renner. I think she brought out the best in him. Just the scenes where she's hanging out with Jeremy Renner were lovely. We get very low stakes villain, the tracksuit mafia, always saying "bro, bro." Just the best.
This is some anti-Slavic propaganda here.
And in general, it is super low stakes and casual and a fun, holiday watch. But except there is a main thing. It reintroduces us to Kingpin, Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin. So this is a reintroduction into that universe, and it's sort of a signal that Daredevil is now coming to the MCU. So that was a very big deal. Handled poorly, executed pretty badly. Just, I think he was shown on like a cell phone photograph by Vera Farmiga. The whole thing is just a little bit laughable, but because it's Vincent D'Onofrio, it was wonderful surprise. At number 10, we have the animated show What If? So this is directed by Brian Andrews, and it's a really fun show based on a fan favorite comic run. Every episode goes into an individual story arc, and it starts with what if this happened? What if this happened? And it goes into key moments in the timeline of the Infinity Saga if they had unfolded differently. So we go into different stories of what if Doctor Strange had lost Christine instead of getting into the accident in the first Doctor Strange and actually losing his hands. What if he had lost his heart in Christine? And this is where Evil Strange, Sinister Strange, is reintroduced or introduced for the first time before Multiverse of Madness. This is also where we first meet Captain Carter. So Agent Carter, played by Haley Atwell, becomes the version of Captain America known as Captain Carter with a Union Jack on her shield. So we see a version of her.
That'll make me support her. A big old Union Jack splashed on you. Yeah.
I have to say, Haley Atwell is delightful. Her version of Captain Carter is delightful. And one of my favorite episodes is where she gets the super soldier serum instead of Steve. And it's a pretty fun arc. And then it also introduces us to Marvel Zombies, which is one of the most important arcs from the comics. A very enjoyable, fun arc that fans seem to really love. So we do see the zombies, and in general, a fun show, but unclear what the impact is, right, in the larger universe moving forward. It is a good watch, but it does feel a little bit of a non-essential. So like an easy skip for someone who doesn't want to devote time, right?
Yeah, this really felt like a bone being thrown to the comics fans, because I don't think
for the
this
diehards
does anything for the people who are just watching this from, the perspective of like, oh, I want to keep up with the cinematic universe. So I hope they do Marvel 1602 next, because that would be like a fun thing to see, where they have all the same Marvel characters, except it's in the Elizabethan era. Captain America is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Native American. It's very dumb.
Lord. Oh, Lord.
I hope they make it.
Let's go on to number 9. So at number 9, we have Miss Marvel. So this is directed by Bisha K. Ali. And honestly, this was astounding to see South Asian representation created by South Asians, led by a wholly charming South Asian actor in Iman Vellani playing Kamala Khan, playing Miss Marvel, was just wonderful. And Iman Vellani has since become such a fan favorite person within this universe, as someone who claims to know more about the universe than Kevin Feige, and it's just delightful to watch her interviews, and I totally believe it. Also, she's on the MCU Reddit board. Just there's a rumor.
Oh yeah,
people try to guess what's her username. It's very fun.
She's always like well actualing people and correcting them about that. Yeah.
She is one of the things that the show did was educate the world about what partition is.
Good God. That was so embarrassing for the world, where they're like, I learned about the partition from Miss Marvel, and I fell to my knees at the Walmart because I couldn't believe that. Our generational trauma, and we are speaking as a Punjabi and a Bengali who are, in the terms of like the spectrum of South Asians, we are more likely to be directly subjected to the trauma of partition. But it's really good to know that Brad from Crown Heights found out about one of the most significant mass migration events of the world because of Kevin Feige. Thanks.
In a way, I know. It's so sad. It's such a sad statement about education in general, but good that came out of the show, right? It was able to make people think about the trauma and the blood and bones of so many South Asians because of partition, and why the crown sucks extra for South Asians. It's deeply disturbing to watch this family just thrive in that show. Everything was just wonderful to see in terms of like representation and diversity. As a story, I have to say Captain Marvel universe, now there are going to be 3 Marvels. The Marvels movie is coming out with, we'll see Monica Rambeau become the next Captain Marvel as well. It's really never really worked for me. I think the treatment for this character and the larger Miss Marvel, the larger Captain Marvel storyline has been a little tricky.
The least believable thing about this show is that a little girl out there is a huge fan of Captain Marvel.
Given all of the Avengers.
Yeah.
One of the highlights was seeing Avengers Con. She goes to Avengers Con and it's really fun.
But like, why would she pick Captain Marvel to be like her favorite? Unless she's just a huge fan of the Air Force. Join the Air Force, guys! It's better than going to college. And I don't understand what about her character, especially the way that she was portrayed, where she was so infallible and perfect.
It's the constant haircuts, the mohawk that she was sporting in the last.
Come on, a 13-year-old has more depth than just I like them because they can change their hair at any time.
Right? Like, this is clear in the comics why she's there's a lot more character development in the comics, which is obviously becoming more and more the case. And this wasn't explored in the TV show, given even 6 episodes. But yeah, I think it left a lot to be desired in terms of like the Marvel storyline, but we will see her next come together with the rest of the Marvels in the movie on the big screen. Okay, another highlight I will say here is that the sort of reintroduction of the X-Men into the MCU. So they use the M word, mutant, and they play the X-Men 90s theme to hint.
No, from
to hint that, yeah, it was actually the internet collectively lost its mind. But Kamala Khan is now hinted to be a mutant, so very fun. All right, at number 8 we have Moon Knight. So in general, I cannot get enough of Egyptology. The Mummy might be the movie I've watched the most in my life. You add a gorgeous ancient history just aspect of Egypt, add some mythical godlike creatures that you're not sure if they're good or bad, add backdrops of Cairo, add remixed Arabic music, and I'm it. It works for me 100% of the time, except Death on the Nile, because that movie was just horrible.
God, that wasn't about Egypt. That was about wasting another pile of money from 20th Century Fox at the time. I think it was released under the Disney umbrella though. So congrats
Getting horny on
Disney.
pyramids. So
Yeah,
just
I'm
no.
I'm very proud of you for uplifting and stepping on ancient Egyptian culture at the same time. Like, well done.
This is also Oscar Isaac's entry into the MCU, and he plays three characters, right? Because the character of Moon Knight has a mental illness, DID, identity disorder. And this is one of the kinder portrayals of mental illness that we've seen on screen. And he plays the three characters very well. So Stephen Grant, Jake Lockley, Mark Spector. And we also have Ethan Hawke in this as the principal villain because he also has to pay his bills. And then F. Murray Abraham is the moon god Khonshu, just leaning on surfaces, hanging out on rooftops, looking great. He does a great job as Khonshu. And in general, even with all of that, I do have to highlight the title cards of this show have been the most unique and the most beautiful. So just having like some sort of gorgeous music to really intro you into the episode, and the music has been amazing coming out of this show. And they've been like highlighting Arabic culture, Arabic artists, a lot of like Egyptian artists through this intro title card, which has been pretty great. In general, I think it was trying to do too much. It was trying to introduce Scarlet Scarab, Layla, who's the love interest in the series, her introduction into the MCU as the superhero Scarlet Scarab, just kind of rushed along. It was totally just villains' motives were totally unclear. If you're not into Egyptian mythology, this will confuse the hell out of you.
Yeah.
And then in general, there was a lot of controversy around the CGI fight scenes and CGI suiting up of Moon Knight. Felt a little stark, felt a little just sudden. So yeah, it was just in general just kind of choppy, just disorganized in terms of like the 6-episode structure we've come to rely on with Marvel TV shows. At number 7, we have She-Hulk, so created by Jessica Gao. All I have to say about this is that I will watch Daredevil and She-Hulk hooking up and having an electrifying back and forth for hours on end. This was a wonder.
I'm really happy that I heard that. I mean, Daredevil is canonically a massive slut, and I'm really happy that that characterization has carried over. Like, I think Charlie Cox really has that impish charm and works, the Catholic guilt really well. It's like, oh, I have so much pain. Sex will fix me, though, I promise. Please have sex with me, and it will heal all of my pain. And I think, I think there was cards laid on the table between him and She-Hulk. She-Hulk is also not like, oh no, I gave it away and he's not like my boyfriend. I don't think she cares that way. So that was refreshing to see, that she didn't immediately like fall in love with him and want to fix him. She was more like, you're another lawyer. And
he
you're
does.
hot.
He does go to brunch with her parents in her parents' house backyard. So very beautiful. I've just never seen Matt Murdock like this. He's laughing. He's having fun. He's out during the daytime. He cares about Jennifer Walters. He's not brooding about his guilt all the time. It's a different version.
Brooding is for nighttime. Yeah, and probably also for
we do
New
see
York
him
City.
laughing in the nighttime.
He's like a typical East Coaster. You come to the West Coast, you're like, oh my god, there's so much like sun and fresh fruits and cheap wine. I'm so happy. And then once the novelty wears off, you're like, okay, it's back to brood. Also, it's just, LA, right? You're not legally allowed to brood there, so.
Loved seeing this new side of Daredevil, and I hope it continues to his new show, which is coming very soon. I really enjoyed the fourth wall breaks, as we had mentioned before, and the single female lawyer aspect that brought like an energy into MCU we haven't seen before.
Oh yeah,
Loved seeing Loved seeing the beautiful, supportive female friendship between Jennifer Walters and Nikki Ramos. So Tatiana
That's what I'm
Maslany.
saying. There was no like friendships before. It was just dudes being bros and like making all these comments at each other and saying, you know, we're like pals and buddies. Like we'll not get emotionally vulnerable with each other, except for like Bucky and Steve, who
They did try
definitely
that
they
pretty
did hand
badly
stuff before, you know, in the first movie, 100%. But I'm just happy that we have like a normal friendship back again where they're like, hey, can we not just can we have a relationship that's outside of just like bad guys coming? What do? So I'm happy about that.
I have to say, Jane and Darcy did work for me at some points, right? Jane and Darcy's friendship, but didn't go as far as
It fell into like wacky sidekick territory, and this felt like actual friends, like peers, you know, like people who respect each other.
That's Kate Denning's whole shtick. And then we also saw Wong and Madison, a new character. And that was, I mean, Wong's been in 10 properties in phase 4, just having a good time. Benedict Wong, enjoying. And then a lot of stuff didn't work. There was just like a lot of like focus on like toxic ass bros. Like the real villain turned out to be just toxicity in general. And there was a lot of focus on like this dude named Todd. We saw reintroduction of Tim Roth as Abomination, which took up a lot of storyline. We did see Bruce Banner, Mark Ruffalo return in the show as well. And all of that just took up a lot of time where we could have just focused on sort of She-Hulk's development and She-Hulk hanging out with Daredevil and She-Hulk with Nikki Ramos. So, and then not to even mention Jamila Jamil's Titania, who had no impact, like just she was in a couple of episodes and absolutely did not make sense. What I wanted more of is the beautiful, talented Renee Elise Goldsberry just slaying as one of the top lawyers in the firm. And I want to look into her wardrobe because gorgeous outfits.
You're just saying that because you love Hamilton and she was in Hamilton.
It is true.
I want to say his side piece. Not quite side piece, friend zone.
His true love. His true love.
Okay. He's a loser. I hate Alexander Hamilton. Like as a person, I mean. And I also agree with you that Renee Elise Goldsberry should be back, but also just make up some shit and get her to sing because she really does have a lovely voice. She's like one of those people like Audra McDonald. Every time I see them and they're acting so well, I'm like, when are you singing though? Because I just want to be mesmerized. Musical episode, come on. I know Ally McBeal did it, right? Like, you gotta do the whole single female lawyer shtick and get on board with the musical episode. Come on, guys. Season 2.
Okay, at number 6, we have Black Panther Wakanda Forever. So Ryan Coogler is back for the sequel to the mega hit Black Panther. The movie is so powerful and so emotional and so important and so overstuffed. Saying goodbye to King T'Challa was indescribable. Like, there was not a dry eye in the theater. You know, the whole I think the powerful aspects of the first film really translate to the second. The music, the outfits, the people, the places, the colors, the story beats really work in this one as well. And we have the introduction of Tenoch Huerta as Namor. Angela Bassett, well, she was in the first film as well, but she is one of the highlights. Angela Bassett as Queen Ramonda, just completely scene stealing her any scene she's in. And then Letitia Wright as Shuri also brings her A game to this and is actually the core of the movie. She has to do the heavy lifting with the trauma of losing T'Challa. And then actually become the Black Panther as well, take up the mantle. Everything else is a little bit shaky. Everything else, we again see Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Valentina enter the storyline. We have Martin Freeman as Agent Ross. We have Lake Bell playing a random scientist. We have Michaela freaking Cole as Dora Milaje getting like 5 minutes of screen time. We have the introduction of a superhero, Ironheart, played by Dominic Thorne, is trying to do too much, and it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot for this one movie to handle, and
Yeah. Feels like one of those situations we talked about, right? Where they're just busy trying to set up so much stuff for the future, they're
so
not
much.
focusing on the present.
They did a lot. Like anytime, if you just take out these like little like introductions and like side storylines, the core Black Panther story is solid. It's robust. It works. Ryan Coogler knows what he's doing with the story. He really has a handle on it. But the extra stuff is where it gets a little tricky. And then I
Yeah,
do have
it's
to
like
say,
that moment in the first movie where you're like, I'm with Killmonger. Who cares about all these other people? And he showed that to Disney and they're like, listen, no, you gotta make him the bad guy. We can't be pro Killmonger. So
well,
you can
Killmonger
tell
is
where
now
like
he's a fan favorite, right? Killmonger is now
yeah.
is again with Zemo as well. Like when you question if you're siding with the villain or the hero, that's compelling storytelling, and that's what Ryan Coogler really brought to
But
this
you can tell
story.
when Disney stepped in and said, no, we gotta
Maybe
make
pull
this
back
about
here a
like
little bit.
yeah, exactly.
The color palette is a little tricky in this one because there's a lot of story underwater, right? Because we get to see a lot of Namor, and this is have to be honest, it was very hard to see. It was just very hard to see underwater, and visually it's very tricky. And I just watched Avatar, and I was just thinking, wow, MCU has a lot to learn from Big Jim. He spent 13 years
Yeah.
making this story, and everything is so bright and crisp and clear. And MCU is dark and just like it's just you're rubbing your eyes trying to be like, is it me? Is it the screen?
Why? Yeah, I mean, James Cameron should share that technology. They are part of the same parent company, so yeah, he's probably paved the way for a better experience doing the same kind of storytelling moving forward.
At number 5, we have WandaVision. So now we're in the top 5 category. So we have directed by Matt Shackman, and all I can say is like, take me to church, Elizabeth Olsen. Just she's doing so much here. This is probably the first time that I realized like, whoa, this this actor has not been given a chance to really shine through in the previous properties, and she is just one of the best
Yeah.
among the actors that they have. And just exploring a lot of the dialogue in this show is wonderful, exploring her loss and grief in losing Vision and losing a lot, losing her brother, losing her family, losing her honestly innocence, right? Just it does so much to really bring us closer to Wanda. And just that this story has, whoever's parsing out this story has a really tight grip on exactly how they want you to feel, and they're parsing out information episode per episode, letting you know that they know what they're doing. It's at a perfect cadence. And then this also
Yeah.
brought in the social media sensations of like, is Mephisto behind this all? Like, is it Mephisto? Is this person Mephisto? Which was one of my highlights of 2021. And then it also brought back Evan Peters, which we thought they were going to introduce X-Men, Quicksilver, all of that. But no, it was actually
That
a
was
guy
a
named
dirty
Ralph
cop out.
Boner.
It was a
dirty
cop out. It was a dirty cop out because like they literally killed Aaron Taylor Johnson because he couldn't measure up to the popularity of Evan Peters as
Evan
Quicksilver.
Peters.
That's an embarrassment for Disney, but it's also just like you're, I don't know, missing an opportunity here to tell a more compelling story, but it was just a cop out. And yeah, I honestly, towards the end of the series, the only highlight for the episodes for me was Catherine Hahn pointing out that Elizabeth Olsen can't keep an accent, which I thought was a good dig, an appropriate one.
Well,
Yeah.
when she meets Pietro, Evan Peters, what we think is Quicksilver, they call each other out. What happened to your accent? What happened to yours? So that is that's a nice little
Yeah.
nod to the fans. Just in general, I think episode per episode, it was, as we mentioned, every episode was a homage to a decade of television, using the tropes and techniques and tricks of the 60s, the 70s, the 50s. Which was wonderful, and Elizabeth Olsen really excelled. So a wonderful show overall. I think the last episode is where I sort of tapped out a little bit with the battle between Catherine Hahn's Agatha Harkness.
Yeah.
It was
More
a little bit
CGI
tricky.
vomit on the screen. It was a little hard to care.
It
But yeah.
lost the story at that point. But one of the best things I saw last year.
I also didn't like that it was basically a defense of Wanda's character. It's like, yeah, she imprisoned thousands of people, but she's sad because some robot that she loved and we barely got to know as a character got his central processing unit ripped out of his head. So I was just like, okay, part of the grief, processing experience is understanding the impact that you have on other people and appreciating connections. And over here it's like, let her get away with whatever she wants. I didn't like that part. That was annoying for me.
Speaking of Wanda, at number 4 now, though, we have Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, directed by Sam Raimi. I have to say, this movie, as wonderful as it is, completely underdoes the character development that we see with Wanda in WandaVision. It takes her character and puts her at just square one, that she's starting again. She's totally lost all of the things that she's learned in WandaVision, and she's repeating herself. And this is I think where a lot of people tapped out of this movie and didn't even pay attention to, honestly, like the absolutely great aspects of this movie. Sam Raimi entering MCU, bringing his horror elements of tracking shots and
he's
close-ups
so good
and
with
shaking
like scene transitions. Like his scene transitions are
A
the
master.
best. They're so fucking corny. I love them. They're like from an 80s movie, which is where Sam Raimi has like kept his aesthetic forever.
When there's a tracking shot of Wanda with her neck at like a very zombie-like angle, and her eyes are glowing red, and the whole screen is red, and the way the camera is moving, very Evil Dead 2, very Sam Raimi, just beautiful what this movie was able to accomplish. Also a full-on entry into horror for the MCU as well, right? We see Zombie Strange fight, we see Sinister Strange musical note fight, which is one of the most wonderful things I've ever seen.
This was promised to be the first foray of like MCU into horror.
Yeah. And then a shout out to John Matheson, the cinematographer who did the musical note fight, who was just wonderful. And all of those aspects really worked well, except obviously we just highlighted how the story and the character arc of Wanda was a little bit reversed and disconnected. We didn't America Chavez's introduction happened in this movie, but she wasn't given proper screen time to really be introduced into the MCU as a superhero on her own right. And then in general, because of the exit of director Scott Derrickson in the middle of production, there was just like a choppy storyline, which is a remnant of leadership change. So despite all of that, I think it really worked for me because of the Sam Raimi factor. Like, you bring him in and I'm just putty in his hands. At number 3, we have Werewolf by Night, which was such
We're keeping
a
with
delight.
the horror. I
you
see
know
what
me.
you're doing here, Kira, you sneaky minx.
So this is where Michael Giacchino really got into his directorial debut. He's just writing poetry, scene after scene, where he's placed the cameras, how he's like going from scene to scene in Bloodstone Manor among all the hunters as they're hunting, and how he's able to convey the homage to horror films of the 30s and 40s, the creature horror, right? It's just wonderful. And helmed by Laura Donnelly and Gael Garcia Bernal. Every scene in which they're talking, every scene in which they are the focus, they are absolutely just shining. I have to say, with all of the commitment that we talked about, right? Like, everything is 6 episodes that are like 45 minutes to an hour. Everything is like a 3-hour movie. This is a short 52-minute runtime. You can just do this while you're, walking around your living room doing things. It's just very digestible and a great break from the normal MCU of it.
It just visually looks so cool with the black and white. Like, you half expect to see Bela Lugosi or Lon Chaney or, Peter Lorre step out, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's also, it's very atmospheric, and I think the content is different, but it's also presented in such a cool way that I think that you don't even have to buy into the fact that it's an MCU thing. You could just watch it as like a horror short or a horror movie.
Yeah, absolutely. At number 2, we have Spider-Man No Way Home. Oh, buddy, what to say about this one?
I can tell you're a millennial. That's all I'll say.
I know. Like, generation-wise, like, did it even, have an impact for Gen Z? But they pulled off something that was pretty astounding. More or less, they kept a secret of 3 generations, 3 franchises of Spider-Man and the villains coming back. And decades and decades of stories and characters and pure cinematic experience that I experienced in the form of nostalgia in the theaters. I cannot describe.
Memes. It was memes. They literally, this was the most self-referential.
Spider-Man pointing me.
Well, the Spider-Man pointing me, but also they were like, hey, Willem Dafoe and Alfred Molina are basically just known for like 5 lines. Out am I? I'm something of a scientist myself. Like, come on, man. Like,
play the hits, baby.
Yeah, this was made by like a scientist in a lab, like algorithmically too.
It just worked, I think this is the first time since Infinity War in the theaters that I felt just like the communal experience of going to the theaters is so real and so special. And when Andrew Garfield comes out of the interdimensional portal and the theater just like completely loses it, like I will forever cherish that moment as like one of the best experience in the theater.
0 out of 10. Andrew Garfield did not come and smash Tom Holland's laptop and say, I'm not coming for 10%. I'm coming for all of it. And Spider-Man 3, of course, is the first superhero movie in the world to have an actual villain play the villain. So it would have been nice to see James Franco creeping around looking like a little golem, not getting paid for his work. He's just there being like, Peter, look at me, Peter. And everyone's like, go home.
I will say, there's been a lot said about how kindly this story was handled with Andrew Garfield given another shot at his franchise, at his role, which we famously know he was very attacked for. Not his fault.
I don't blame him. So
in general, that was a trend, right? Like, I mean, it continues to be a trend of like the faults of the studio, the execs. It's all really taken out on the actors themselves, and it has really impact on their mental health. It has an impact on their career, and for a long time, Andrew Garfield really suffered.
I think he was just upset because he loved Spider-Man and he wanted to do a good job. I actually don't think he gets hate. I think everybody who even doesn't like those movies says Andrew Garfield is not the problem, which he's not. He's ostensibly not.
I will say now they say that. Back in the day, I don't think people knew the difference. So a lot of the hate just felt that it was directed towards Garfield. And now people are very protective of him. Now people are so protective of and really have come to appreciate him as Spider-Man.
Okay.
And he got more cheers than Tobey Maguire in my theater.
I had people straight up going, why is the Social Network guy here? So there you go. I'm just
You need to go to better theaters. Oh my gosh.
No, I don't. I went to a theater where people were like, is he gonna cut his hair emo and start dancing? Because we all know that's the best part of those Raimi movies.
Just the kindness aspect was lovely, and lovely to see that just from the people in the theater. And then, of course, we have the villains come back as well, most notably Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe. We see Dr. Octopus. Alfred Molina is back as well. Just the whole thing is just an exercise in nostalgia. It worked so much that a fan favorite category was added to the Oscars, right? Just to acknowledge how impactful that
to get
year.
viewers. Oh, sorry. Yes, impactful. Yes.
I mean,
It's
honestly,
not
to
a
get
desperate
viewers.
ploy for viewers at all. It was really about respecting the craft of filmmaking. Academy,
It
sure.
they didn't nominate No Way Home, so they were like, "Still, we are still relevant. Please watch us." Here's a
What?
no
Not even for like
fan
visual
favorite.
effects and like technical things. They didn't get a nomination.
I don't think so. But of course, this fan favorite vote on social media backfired, and I believe Johnny Depp's Unknown movie ended up winning. Anyway,
What?
we
No.
the whole
Wasn't
thing
it like a
was
Zack
just
Snyder thing? I thought it was a Zack
weren't there
Snyder.
there were three fan favorite categories, and I believe one of them was taken by a movie I've never heard of by Johnny Depp. But yeah, Spider-Man No Way Home was not number one in any of these fan favorite categories. So
Stop the count.
good job, Oscars.
Stop the count. What is happening? I mean, Twitter is full of bots. We all know that. But like, what a weird thing to vote for. I'm gonna have to look this up because I know that 2 of those awards went to like a fan cheer moment for when the Flash entered the Speed Force in Zack Snyder's Justice League, a movie that wasn't even theatrically released, and the second one went to Army of the Dead, another Zack Snyder movie.
I mean, reason number like 24 that Oscars really are becoming less and less relevant is because they fundamentally misunderstand social media and they thought this would draw in audiences. With all of that, why do I have it at number 2? Well, because I did rewatch it at home, and gotta tell you, it doesn't hit the same way. Like the high that you feel in the theater with like your community is just absolutely gone at home, and it loses its charm. And you realize that the Spider-Man story really revolves around the trio, right? The core trio of Jacob Batalon as Ned, Zendaya as MJ, and Tom Holland as Peter Parker. This is the heart of the story, and anytime they are on screen, it works for me.
Yeah, the
Everything
Scooby Gang
felt,
is what keeps it together, right? Like that's the fun.
This is the emotional core of the story. So yeah, so it lost its charm. It's just you can't rely on it can't rely on surprise and nostalgia to carry you through a story solely, and they did that a lot with like all of these people entering the universe. Not to mention like the story, like Doctor Strange wearing the sweatshirt, doing the magic and like messing up, like just totally felt like out of the blue. But we forgot all of those weaknesses because, you know, like we were just so high from seeing all these faces from years past. So yeah,
I did love that Andrew Garfield came in and said, "Hey, Benedict Cumberbatch, it's not that hard to do an American accent believably. Watch and learn, bitch."
Dormammu.
I do appreciate Andrew Garfield coming in classily and being like, "Hi, I'm British and I can do an American accent without sounding like a caricature." Anyway, back to the discount Hugh Laurie. I mean, Benedict Cumberbatch. Here you go.
All right. Number 1. There's only one left. It's Loki, y'all. Number 1, I have Loki, directed by the wonderful Kate Herron, written by Michael Waldron, who was really, really so celebrated after this show's success that he was given the platform to write Doctor Strange 2. Loki was such a thrill to watch. Tom Hiddleston's Loki just remains one of the best things about the MCU. He's supposed to be this like quote unquote villain, but not really. And he's been like consistently more charming than Thor, consistently.
He's got that James Dean look in his eye. Oh wait, that's not about him. Sorry, oops.
I love TS. Yeah, this show was our introduction to so many core aspects of what the multiverse saga is going to turn out to be in the subsequent phases, phase 5, phase 6. We got our introduction to the time variance authority, the one sacred timeline, the multiple branching of timelines. We got to see Loki variants, right? We got to see Kid Loki, classic Loki. We got to see Lady Loki, Crocodile Loki. And it was just delightful to really see them all interact with our one Loki.
Richard E. Grant
as
stole
classic Loki.
the show. And my second favorite thing about this was the whole discussion around, if you do stuff with your time variant, is it incest? Is it masturbation? So I love when those concepts come out of, a TV show. It's like, that's the real esoteric, like that's the true storytelling, like there.
And well, at the heart of it all, there is a love story, right? Between Owen Wilson's Mobius and Loki.
Wow.
But there is a sort of, there is a love story between them, but there's the love story of honestly self-love and overcoming grief and trauma and just becoming a better version of who you are. So when we say self-love, it's literally self-love, because Loki does fall in love with Lady Loki, played or Sylvie, played by Sophia DiMartino. And this was a wonderful way, well, first of all, to really start an incest discussion on the internet.
Yeah. I don't think it's incest. I think it's just masturbation. Because you're not related.
I thought it worked so well.
Leave us a comment, guys. Do you think it's incest or masturbation?
I thought it worked so well because each of them held up a mirror to themselves, and they're the same person but technically different, with different upbringing and different timelines, totally different experiences, but they are so fundamentally similar in the way they think and the way they feel, and they're learning from each other, and just how that love story is explored. We've never seen a side of Loki like this. Yeah. We've never seen Tom Hiddleston cry as Loki, and he's having the time of his life. He's having a ball in the show.
Yeah, it's a decent exploration into like Psych 101 of what is narcissism. I think people use that term, throw it around all the time, but like we're really going into like the DSM definitions, and I think they actually take the time to explore what it's like for a person who has narcissistic tendencies to build relationships.
Yeah.
It was also a cool show to look at. They had like little animated elements. They were changing scenes, like the look of the bureau that they were in was like very 1940s 50s like government building looking, so it was cool looking. So I agree with your pick.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so just visually, right? Like beautiful visuals, and like we should mention gorgeous music as well. And I just remember these like beautiful vistas and views of these large scale timelines and environments that they're showing, but the story is so personal and so intimate at the same time. And let's never forget, this is our introduction to Jonathan Majors Kang, or He Who Remains, because he does have different versions and different timelines. The highlight of this phase, honestly, is Kang. And to see Jonathan Majors, because no one knew he would be introduced in the show, and to see him in the last episode, sitting there, eating a green apple in the Citadel at the end of time. He's having so much fun.
There was something very William Shatner about the way he was doing that. And I hope that he gets to keep both the ham and the cheese in his performances as Kang moving forward.
He's having so much fun. He is elite as Kang, and honestly, with how unstable and all over the place this phase has been, the TV shows, the movies, Kang's entry into the universe is like one of the best decisions the E3 studio heads, the Marvel's exec team, has taken. I cannot wait to see where this goes. I cannot wait to see the culmination of the multiverse saga in the Avengers Kang Dynasty, which is still 2 years away. So that is our list. That is, again, I do want to mention we did not see I Am Groot or Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. We are only rating the top 16 Whether you really disagree or really agree,
Mhm.
let us know if you agree as well. Sometimes we like a
Yeah.
nice positive comment.
No, comments in general help the algorithm. So if you think we're two dumb broads who don't know what the fuck we're talking about, please leave that as well. It's also really good for us to share on social media. So
Just know
absolutely
we will
comment.
attack you. That is where we'll leave you for today. For next time, we are doing a rundown of the hits and misses of streaming in 2022. We'll see you then. Happy holidays and happy new year, full screeners.
Happy 2023, y'all. Bye.